Starting us off is Hidden. Today he's borrowing Gabe's deck, Jansen. This is a Mardu value sack deck, using Jan's ability to instantly convert an artifact into 2. You get to play a lot of powerful synergies, along with a few 2-card combos to make this deck an absolute nightmare for the table. Next up is Fernando on Kiora, Sovereign of the Deep. And while she might have lost her spark, she gained quite the strong ability. Simic Sunbirds is a pretty accurate descriptor, as while the deck can be on the slower side, once it gets going, there's no stopping these serpents from taking over. In the third spot, we have Jordan on Gishath, Sun's Avatar. And what can I say other than... This has been his pet deck from the start, and is only getting better with some spicy new includes from Ixalan. And bringing up the rear is Gabe on Wernog Elmar. And while you might be more familiar with their Stranger Things printing, this is a 4-color human strategy. And as everyone knows, humans are everywhere, and with such a vast card pool to choose from, this deck has a lot of things going for it.
Alright, block there, kill that. Oh, that is trample. Guess I'm just dead on board.
Hidden starts off the game with a Drossforge Bridge. Fernando has a Temple of Mystery, scrying a card to the bottom. Jordan has a tap Path of Ancestry, naming Dino. Gabe decides to follow the table and plays a tapped Overgrown Tomb. Hidden has a Great Furnace, and for 2 casts a Servo Schematic, which on ETB gets him a Servo. Fernando has a tapped Breeding Pool and hands a turn over. Jordan plays a Forest and casts a Marauding Raptor, getting to scry off his Path of Ancestry as he keeps the card on top. Gabe plays a tapped Temple Garden. Hidden has a Plains and casts his commander Jansen. Fernando has a Forest and for 3 casts a Kiora, Behemoth's Beckoner. Jordan plays another Forest and for 3 casts an Urza's Incubator. Heading to combat, he sends the Dino at Kiora. Gabe plays a Mountain and casts a Progenitor's Icon, naming Human. With Hidden at his end step, cracking his Servo. Unfortunately, he does get his mode switched up, as he should have 4 servos, not 2 servos and 2 treasures. Hidden plays a Clifftop Retreat as land, and for 2 casts an Arcane Signet, following it up with a Liquid Metal Torque into a Mephetic Draught. The artifact enters and draws Hidden a card and loses him a life. Hidden then ends his turn with combat, sending the 2 servos at Kiora. Fernando misses his land drop and downticks Kiora to untap a land, as he casts a Reservoir Kraken, getting to draw off Kiora when it enters. Jordan plays Huatli, Poet of Unity, who on ETB grants him a Mountain, which he plays as land. Also, on ETB, triggers his Raptor, which deals Huatli 2 damage.
It's official. Jordan hitting women.
I messed up, man.
She's the warrior.
I'm putting you away, bro.
Jordan then heads to combat and sends the Raptor at Gabe. Gabe plays a Havengul Laboratory as land, and then casts a Heronblade Elite, tapping out to cast his commander Wernog, Rider's Champion. On ETB, both Hidden and Fernando take 1, with Jordan gaining a clue, and Gabe a total of 2 clues. This also triggers the Elite to gain a counter, with Hidden at his end step cracking his draught for 2 more servos and to draw a card and lose a life. Hidden has a Marsh Flats as land, cracking it to grab out of Badlands. Next up is an Ichor Wellspring, drawing a card off the ETB. Hidden then moves to combat and sends his 3 servos at Kiora, choosing to eat whichever one Fernando blocks with Jan. Hidden gets 2 treasures and the Kiora is dead. Then, on his second main, Hidden abrades Jordan's Incubator. Jordan does crack a clue in response, but the artifact is destroyed. Fernando heads straight to combat and sends his Kraken at Gabe, who has no blocks. But before damage, Fernando mutates a Sea Dasher Octopus under the Kraken to let Fernando draw when the sea creature connects. Fernando finally rips the land he needs, as he plays a tapped Highlander Depth and rearranges the top 3. Jordan plays a Sunbaked Canyon and for 5 casts an Invasion of Ikoria, where X equals 3. He gives the battle to Fernando to protect. Jordan then grabs out a Runic Armasaur. This triggers the Raptor to ping it and grow, but in response, Hidden casts an Anguish Unmaking to kill the Armasaur and fizzle the trigger. Jordan then heads to combat and sends his team at the battle for 4. Gabe on his turn casts his other commander, Elmar, Ulvenwald in format. He gets a trigger on the elite and then casts a Blade Historian. This is his second spell, so he triggers the informant to untap his elite, investigate, and gain his third counter on the elite. A Gaia's Cradle then comes out as land for turn, following that up with a Marin and an Ultham, so Guardian Outcast, growing his elite twice more. Hidden on his turn casts a Marionette Master, who resolves, and on ETB, Hidden puts 3 counters on the creature. 3 treasures are then cracked, which trigger the Marionette to deal Gabe 12 damage. Hidden uses the 3 mana on a Sculpting Steel, which enters as an Ichor Wellspring, drawing him a card on ETB. With Hidden ending his turn playing a Mycosynth Garden as land for turn. Fernando starts off his turn with a Soul Ring, and then heads to combat, with Gabe this time tapping down one of his creatures to give Fernando an unblockable fish and tap his Kraken down. Then, on his second main, Fernando casts his commander Kiora, Sovereign of the Deep. Jordan has to strip mine his land, using it immediately to destroy Gabe's Gaia's Cradle, and then following that up by tapping out to activate Huatli to flip, which get him 2 3/3 dinos on his first lore counter. The Raptor then triggers to double Enrage and grow, with Jordan then turning the dino sideways at his Invasion of Ikoria. Fernando doesn't have any blockers, and the battle is defeated, and flips to become Zolortha, Apex of Ikoria. Gabe heads straight to combat and sends his elite, Elmar, and Wernog at Hidden, and due to the Blade Historian, they all have double strike. Hidden chumps the elite with a servo, blocks the Wernog with Jan, and takes 6 from an unblocked Elmar. Although Hidden does sacrifice his servo with Jan to make 2 more treasures and drain Gabe for 4. Wernog's death trigger then happens with Hidden investigating. Fernando and Jordan take 1 each, with Gabe making 2 clues. With Gabe on his second main activating Ultham to bring Wernog back from the grave. This time, Hidden and Jordan investigate, and Fernando takes 1, with Gabe making 3 clues. A Mount Doom then comes out as land, and he follows it up by cracking 4 of his clues to draw 4 more cards. This unfortunately does trigger his Havengold Laboratory to flip, but without a target, the land is now stuck. With Hidden at his end step, cracking a clue to draw a card and ping Gabe for 4. Hidden has a Bloodstained Mire as land, cracking it out to grab a plateau. Next up, he cracks a treasure, pinging Gabe for 4. Upon cracking his second treasure, Gabe responds with a Cosmic Rebirth. Hidden doesn't like to see the life gain, and responds by cracking his last treasure to ping Gabe, and then finally crack his clue to draw a card and ping Gabe for his final points of life.
My own clue! My own clue!
Next up is a Reckless Fireweaver into a Duretti Ingenious Iconoclast. The Planeswalker resolves, and Hidden downticks him to sacrifice his Sculpting Stilled Wellspring to destroy the Zolortha. Hidden draws a card and pings Jordan for 4, finally ending his turn with an Oscar, the Reconstructor. Fernando on his turn casts an AC, Tyrant of the Gyre Strait. This triggers Kiora to have him look at the top 6, and what looks like it's mostly lands, he does find a Prime Speaker Zagana, which enters with 6 counters and draws him 7 cards. He has extra land drops and plays a snow-covered island, triggering Asi to draw a card. Playing another snow-covered island, he then draws even more cards. Fernando then heads to combat and sends the Kraken and Fish at Hidden for 7, who takes the hit. And with the Kraken connecting, Fernando draws another card, with Fernando ending his turn discarding a bunch of cards due to hand size. Jordan draws and gets another lore counter, and with his creature being able to now tap for mana, he casts his commander Gishath. Jordan scries a card to the top off the Path of Ancestry, and triggers his other dino to ping his commander for 2. Jordan then heads to combat and sends Gishath at Hidden for 7, with Hidden blocking the Dino with Oxgear, with Hidden before damage tapping his Torque to make his creature an artifact. Although responding to that, Jordan casts a Boros Charm to give his commander double strike, with Hidden responding by sacrificing one of his servos to make 2 treasures. Jordan takes 4 off the sack, and then the table takes 2 when the treasures enter. Hidden doesn't have enough mana to sacrifice enough artifacts, but cracks a treasure to activate Oskir to sacrifice his Ichor Wellspring to draw a card. Jordan takes 4, with the table finally letting the damage happen. First strike happens, killing Oskir, with 3 trampling over to Hidden. This triggers Gishath to put in a rampaging Bronze Dawn, with Jordan taking 4 from Oskir dying as well. Regular damage then happens, with Hidden taking 7. Jordan reveals a Gulta and Mavrin, a Trumpeting Carnosaur, and the original Gulta. Discovering 5, he finds a Quartzwood Crusher.
Yeah, that's all.
That's draw. God damn
You
it.
just draw swords.
Hidden plays an isolated Chapel as land, and for 2 casts a Blood Artist. Following that up, Hidden activates Jan to sacrifice his servo for some more treasure. This drains Jordan for 1, with him taking 4 from the Marionette Master. Then the table takes 2 from the Reckless Fireweaver. Hidden then casts a Scrap Welder. The Dreddy is down-ticked again to sacrifice Hidden's Great Furnace to blow up Fernando's Prime Speaker. Jordan takes 4 from the artifact dying, and the Blood Artist drains him for 1. Fernando plays a Simic Growth Chamber as land, tapping and then bouncing one of his islands. He draws a card off Aussie, and replays his island. He draws another card from the island entering, and then taps 7, as he casts a Nimbus Swimmer. This triggers Kiora, and unfortunately, he finds a Cyclonic Rift in the top 7. It's still the best thing for him to do, as he casts it to bounce Hidden's Marionette Master. This prompts Hidden to crack 2 of his treasure to take Jordan out, and he casts a Path of Exile on Fernando's commander, although Fernando has Heroic Intervention to fizzle the spell. Fernando then heads to combat, with Hidden tapping his Blood Arts to tap the Kraken. Fernando then sends the Fish, Aussie, and Kiora at Hidden, and seeing as this would be 11 damage, Hidden needs to chump with his Scrap Welder. Hidden takes 5, but gains 1 as he drains Fernando with the Blood Artist. Hidden draws and recasts his Marionette Master. He puts the counters back on it and follows it up with a prize statue. It enters and pings Fernando, pinging him again as Hidden makes a treasure off the ETB. And with that, Hidden goes into the tank as he tries to figure out if he can survive the turn. He starts off by killing Duretti to sacrifice his statue to destroy Icy. Fernando takes 4 from the artifact getting sacked, 1 from the Blood Artist, and another one when the statue makes a treasure. Next up, Hidden taps his Torque to make his commander an artifact, tapping it to have Jan sacrifice himself for 2 more treasures. This deals Fernando 4 from the Marionette, 1 from the Blood Artist, and 2 more from the Reckless Fireweaver. Now seeing the path to victory, Hidden then turns his Reckless Fireweaver sideways at Fernando. Fernando is going to take 1 either way, as with the Blood Artist, either he eats the Fireweaver, chumps it with one of his fishes, or just takes the 1 from letting it through. And with Hidden being able to sacrifice his 4 treasures for the final points of damage, winning Hidden the game. Game review. Man, that was a tight game. Every little point mattered. Although I probably missed a line here or there. I really thought we were done for when Jordan pulls out that Boros Charm and went 10 deep eating my creature. I'm just glad my braid on his incubator stopped him just long enough. I did look back and wonder if taking Gabe out first was correct, but I was afraid of that double strike. And out of everyone, I lacked a good creature defense to actually stop him from swinging at me. And as for Fernando, he had a Whelming Wave in hand, and I think if he played a little more conservatively, the last turn he really would have had it. Although I understand when you're sitting at 30 life, you might not feel that threatened. And before everyone leaves, I want to thank a special Patreon member, Gishath, for his support of the channel, along with all of our other Patreon supporters as well. And as always, I want to thank all the players who joined for the games. And remember, never give up, even if you're dead on board. I'll see you guys later.